Imagine being in a position to take down a major cooperation. Then imagine what the ramifications of doing so could be for you and your family. Stay tuned, because that is exactly what my next guest did. And of course, she wrote a book about being an ethical whistleblower.
Welcome to Black Writer Therapy, the podcast where Black women writers come to heal, share, and be their most unapologetic Black woman writer selves. I'm your host and unlicensed therapist, Ella Shawn, and I'm excited you decided to spend this hour with us. Whether you're joining for the first time or you're a returning listener, this is your space to explore the art of storytelling, find inspiration, and connect with a community of bold and brilliant Black women writers.
Today's guest is Danielle Spencer, a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in business, finance, and acquisition management within the IT sector. She holds 2 master's degrees, one in business administration and another in information systems, and a Bachelor of Science in medical and research technology. She's also certified in cybersecurity and project management. Mrs. Spencer, Ella will see you now.
Hi, Miss Danielle Spencer. Thank you so much for joining me here on the proverbial couch. I am so glad that you were able to make time for us today. How are you doing?
Great. And thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. I always feel like everyone who comes on the show, everyone who says yes, I'm just like, oh, they did me such a huge favor. Like, I don't know. I'm always in that vein. Like, I'm so grateful for every guest, right? So, wow, I saw you on LinkedIn. That's where I kind of was like, oh, that is interesting. Like, oh, shall I? Could I? Dare I? And so I dared, and you said yes, and I'm really excited. I think you are my first whistleblower.
Wow. Interesting.
So you are really kind of like, every time I have a first, I'm like, thank you for elevating my show, because that's what's happening here. Like, you're my first whistleblower. I want to jump right into stuff, but I know I can't, right? Because I can't. So I'm going to let you, in your own words, tell the listeners a little bit about you and why I'm like sitting here on pins and needles trying to jump into everything.
Okay. Well, I would say, as you said, on LinkedIn. So from a professional standpoint, I am an IT specialist. I've been working in the IT field for almost 25 years now. My specialty, or what I would say, what I do every day, is things such as project management, contract management, more operations for IT, quote unquote, a STEM baby. So I'm very analytical. I am not someone who's very good at being creative. This move to being an author, and I'm very introverted. So being an author and speaking with people, this is very much outside of my comfort zone. However, in, I would say, late 2016, early 2017, when I started making my management aware of some activities that were going on that I felt were either against the law or against company or government policy, and I, quote unquote, blew the whistle. That's when I officially became a whistleblower. And so now I have this new title that I didn't ask for, wasn't something that for which I was looking, but now I am a whistleblower, and I would say that's almost the title that I wear most nowadays, is that of a whistleblower. And my goal now is to educate the public, to get them to have an understanding of mostly how technology and our data can be misused and used to kind of destroy our lives. And so that's kind of where I am now, is not trying to scare people. When you get frightened or become fearful, you basically won't be in a position to help yourself. But when you're aware of things and you have knowledge of them, you're better able to adapt and to be able to respond when certain situations, or if certain situations arise. So that's kind of now.
Wow. You just did all that really succinctly. Look, I am your direct opposite. I don't have one analytical bone in my body. Not really. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right? Because as a writer, I have to be able to analyze, but like the data and the numbers and the not even. So I'm always impressed when left brainers are able to do right brainer stuff really well. That's a talent. So yeah, you have one of the caveats of being a writer down, being an introvert. Most writers I find are very much introverted. We can turn it on when we need to, but mostly leave me alone. Give me my laptop. Let me either read or write. I don't really want to talk to people. So I think that is so fascinating. And I'm looking at you and you're such like a pleasant face, beautiful woman, very pleasant face. And you're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm like, oh my God, you had to be really brave, I would imagine.
I'll say now, like looking back over the journey and even in this space where we are now, especially in America, I guess people can call it bravery. I grew up, not only was I a STEM kid, my parents were union members. My father was, they're called shop stewards, but basically kind of had a title in the union, members of the NAACP. I remember as a young person going with my dad to those meetings and helping him write, as I got older, write responses or write complaints and helping them build their database. So it was stuff that I was kind of introduced to very young in life. So for me, it was second nature. When you see something wrong, you're supposed to say something. So it was just second nature. I never thought of it as bravery or taking a chance or anything. It was just, that's how I was brought up. What I would tell people is that for me, my story really didn't start with the whistleblowing. It was the retaliation afterwards that's continuing on today. That is where my story really began. What I blew the whistle on, it was not altruistic. So it wasn't something like the Boeing whistleblowers. It was nothing like that. The law says you can't do this, but management's telling you, but we need this done. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I am an African-American woman. And I know that when this is audited and they see that mistake, everybody else is going to have amnesia. And Danielle was the one who did that. Go get her. Like, no, that was not part of the plan. Me doing that, like I said, I never thought of it as being brave. I always thought of it as, this is just something wrong and I can't do it.
Wow. Wow. I was going to kind of ask you, like, because you had to be kind of high up, right? And clearance and all the things to be at this position.
Yeah, so from a grade level, somewhat pretty high, but I was not like an executive. But after you get, I'm gonna say above a grade 13, I'm gonna say because it's the federal government. Once you get above a grade 13, you have like team lead or some type of supervisory responsibilities, but you're not an executive. You still do take direction from people who are at the executive level or senior management levels. That was where my direction was coming, to do things that I believe were not legal or were unethical.
Now, my question, because you mentioned I'm an African-American woman, and if stuff comes down the pike, it's going to land right here in my lap. Were you one of few or one of many at this level?
There was, I won't say I was few. There were other of us, but mine was more so, like I said, because I knew what the law stated. And I don't know how other of us might have acted or how they would have handled the situation. But again, based on my background, especially being part of the NAACP, I've seen people get in trouble for doing things that, even though they were directed to do it and they did it, when the stuff started rolling, it rolled over top of them. And that was like my experience, what I had been exposed to. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And one of the things I will add to that is that, for example, and this is just like illustrative, being told to pay an invoice and you feel that paying that invoice is incorrect. The person who is telling you to do that, they have the same rights or abilities. They're free that if you feel that what you're asking me to do is legal or it's a correct thing to do, you're free to pay the invoice or do anything that you want to do. You don't have to have me do it. But to me, that added to that layer of feeling or the belief of being set up, because if you're able to do it too, but you're not willing to do it, but you want to make me do it, that becomes even more suspect to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. And I still don't know how I would have moved, right? I guess you have to be in that position, right? To say, I'm going to do whatever it is that's right for the whole of it. But I still say you were really brave, right? So you positioned yourself in a place to be on the right side of things when all the walls came crumbling down. So I'm going to ask this question before we get further into it. And I ask every guest this: how are you healing today?
I'll say right now, because it's still ongoing, I have some type of disconnect, whereas I know it's stressful or a difficult situation, but from an emotional standpoint, I don't realize that. Whereas my body is realizing it, but there's like a disconnect between the two. So,
Wow.
and this has been going on for about 6 years. In, I'll say late 2023, my primary care physician was like, this is why you're having all these physical symptoms and all these other things. She had me go to a psychiatrist to talk about things. And um, I will admit that I was kind of offended at first. Like, why do you want me? There's something physically wrong with me, it's not emotional. But it took me almost 5 months to actually make the appointment. But it was one of the best things that I did. So for me, it's a hard way to try to, like you said, heal, because from an emotional standpoint, I don't see it. I don't exhibit it or anything. The way that you see me now, this is how I am almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so for people like me, which she said is very rare, it's hard to treat because we don't have the emotional response that someone who's dealing with anxiety or stress. So we're still trying different things to see how to best alleviate the physical symptoms that my body is exhibiting because my mind is not realizing it. So it's, I want to say, very interesting journey of learning about there being that disconnect there.
Thank you for sharing that too, first and foremost. But the idea of there being this emotional disconnect from everything that's been happening. I mean, obviously, I'm sure your doctor told you this is your mind protecting you, right? This is your
Yes,
your brain doing all of this protective work. And that's what I find so amazing with the whole brain situation, right? It's going to protect as much as possible, but it's still wreaking havoc on your body.
yes.
Word.
Very interesting, because I was getting sick, blood work not turning up right, things growing in you getting sick, and going through all of these specialists and trying to figure out what it is. And I said, I am very appreciative of the knowledge that people in medical field have. After a few years, it's like, from a medical perspective, we don't see anything wrong. We keep doing these tests, and we can't tell you why you keep getting these infections or why your blood work keeps getting, that we can't find it. So I'm going to send you here and see if there's something else going on that that I'm not finding. And when I spoke with the psychiatrist, she said, you're hard to diagnose because you have none of the emotional. And she's like, none. You have none of the emotional exhibits of someone who might be dealing with depression or anxiety. And I was like, I'm not depressed. And she said, no, you're not. She said, but when we diagnose it, when you have digestives or sleeping, she said, when you have all these symptoms, that's what we would call it. She said, but from an emotional standpoint, no, you're not. Your body is, but your mind isn't. And so she said, that's what's going to make it a challenge to treat you, because a lot of the things that we would typically do for someone like you or probably not work. And so we did a couple of things. They even sent me to a trauma specialist, and there were some special things. And he had me for like 6 weeks, and then he was like, this is not working. I was like, what? He said, because you have no emotional response. He said, I'm sitting here watching you. And he said, you're just like, you're talking about going to the store to pick up groceries. He said, there's no emotional response at all. And he said, even when we're going through, things that have happened to you, he said, you have no emotional response. He said, so this is not working. And I would say it's like a learning journey. It's interesting for someone who does not have it. Now, so how do I deal with the physical symptoms? And so that's
Right.
kind of what we're working on now to see, is it something that we can address, or do I just need to not be in certain environments? So I want to say that's kind of where we are now. So it's interesting and learning for me.
Wow. I'm just like fascinated. I told my mom once, my mother is bipolar, and I said, perhaps all of the diseases that manifest in our body comes from dis-ease, like the DIS ease in our mind. But if our minds are not capable of saying, hey, I got this dis-ease going on, fix it, then what do we do? What do we do here? When the body says, well, I'm feeling all of it. I think you're in such a precarious situation, but I do want to say, I was thinking you look amazing. Like you look unbothered. And I read all this information about you. I was like, I'm already bald head, right? So I keep it shaved. I would be like a hot, stankin' mess. No beautiful smile, no beautiful skin, no nothing. I would be a hot mess because like what you've gone through. And I would like for us to talk about that a little bit, but here you are. And now that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Your beautiful brain is doing a great job of protecting you, but it cannot protect the physical. So it's like, wow, that's fascinating. That's a whole book, right? For me, my mind is already like,
Yes.
the writer in me. I'm like, oh, this is a book. The book. So I have all my little list here. We got to how you're healing, a very difficult journey. I think it sounds to me complex PTSD, and that's so hard to deal with. All of it, especially when it shuts everything down and just attacks the body. It feels almost like an autoimmune issue. I have autoimmunity, and I'm like, that's what it sounds like you're dealing with, right? But it's not. So we got through here. Here's my question. You said that we're going to get to the book so that we can get to everything else. Your most cathartic book was Digital Assassin, Surviving Cyber Terrorism and a Digital Assassination Attempt. When I tell you this title is everything, did you come up with this or did the publisher say?
Actually, it was a really good friend of mine. She's almost like a sister. We were going back and forth, and I knew I wanted the word assassination in the title. And so we were going back and forth trying to figure it out. I can't remember the word that she was using. And I said, well, no, it's more of a digital. I said, because it's used in digital means. And she said, well, there's your title, Digital Assassins. And I said, okay. And I was like, okay. So we got that part. And I was speaking to another friend of mine who specializes in cybersecurity. And she was explaining to me, well, this is what you're going through. She said, it's cyber terrorism. It's a digital assassination attempt. Between the two of them, I was able to come up with a title to accurately describe what I had been experiencing. And I would say not just me, but people close to me. So it's me and there are people who are in my circle.
These words are visceral. Like they carry a certain violence with them. When I hear words like that, like they hurt because I have this really intimate relationship with words. And so when I hear words like cyber terrorism, digital assassination, like they hurt, like physically for me. And I don't know if I've never been on the receiving end of any of this. And here you are living it. Digital assassin, surviving cyber terrorism, and the digital assassination attempt is what's hurting the most. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'll start with the cyber terrorism. Most people, take the cyber part out and you just think about terrorism. Think about what happened like on 9/11. That was a terrorist attack. And what it was meant to do was to strike fear in America. Fear of doing this, fear of flying, fear of going into certain types of buildings. That is the goal of terrorism. So when you think about it from a cyber perspective, it's basically trying to do the same thing, but using cyber techniques. And so you could do things such as surveillance. I think most people know, especially who use cell phones, there is surveillance techniques in there. But anything electronic, so if you have a newer car model where you have GPS in it, or all these other wonderful electronic means, you can be surveilled where you go, doing things such as making up traffic tickets or traffic incidents, because all of that stuff is done electronically. And especially when you know that you weren't in a certain place or that you weren't doing certain things and you get the ticket in the mail, what is the goal of it? It's to produce fear. So I want to say that's the cyber terrorist part. We're upset with you. You're doing something. So now we're going to try to cause you to be terrorized because of whatever you've done. And like I said, I believe that happened to me because I was a whistleblower, but it doesn't stop there. You could have a domestic situation and whoever's the aggressor in that relationship, if they're smart with computers, they could do the same thing. Calling a person and using, they're called spoof numbers where you can't tell where the phone call is coming from and leaving scary messages. But that's all part of that, all falls under that cyber terrorism. So, like I said, because I think mine is because I was a whistleblower, it doesn't just stop there. It can be in various different forms. So that's the cyber terrorism part. The other part, where I call it digital assassination, in today's digital or electronic world, when you get upset with someone, you don't have to physically kill them. So you don't have, have a sniper standing out your door waiting for you to go outside so that you can kill them. Now you can kill a person's character, their professional career, their finances, anything using digital means. Doing like I provided a lot of examples in the book, but things such as changing someone's credit score, feeding false information to the credit reporting bureaus so that your score tanks, and then or sending false information to your creditors so they either close your credit accounts or lower your credit limits. Things like that. Those are digital ways where you can attack someone, either, like I said, either their character, their professional career, or their finances, in a way to try to assassinate them so they can't make a living, they can't borrow money or have finances, they're unable to get a job, things like that. So that's kind of those two headings are basically, say, since 2017, but I believe I have been experiencing.
Do you have like specific things that you can talk about? I know you said this is ongoing, so I don't.
So the one example I gave about the ticket, now that didn't happen to me, that happened to my parents. And so what happened, they got a ticket in the mail that said that they failed to stop for a school bus. Now, my parents are older, they're senior citizens. And for this particular time that this ticket said that they had done whatever they failed to stop for a school bus, they both were at a doctor's appointment at the same time. Something that is very rare. Usually, especially with older married couples, they might both go to the doctor where the husband's just sitting there waiting for the wife, or the wife is sitting there. But this time, they both were seeing the same doctor at the same time. So when the ticket came in the mail, and like I said, my default emotion typically is not fear. I'll get upset. So the first thing when I saw it, I got upset, got angry, and had to calm myself down, but I handled it. But in the ticket, they had three pictures. There were two pictures, the top and the bottom, were of the school bus. And you could see the school bus, and they had the date and time on there for the ticket. But my parents' vehicle was not in there. The one in the middle was a picture of the back of my father's van. But what it looked like was that someone had been tailing him to get a picture of the back of his van. The school bus was not anywhere in sight. There was no date and time on the picture. So we have no idea when that was taken. And so when I wrote the response to the agency that gave them the ticket, I will say I had a little spicy nice in there. And I said, well,
Spicy nice.
Cloning has not been perfected. So there's no way that my parents could have been at a doctor's appointment, because they both were at this doctor's appointment, see attached, and doing what you accused them to do. And then I pointed out the thing with the ticket, with the pictures not matching what they were accusing them of. I said, so I need an explanation. Within 24 hours, they had deleted the ticket and said it was a mistake. I went back, I said, oh, no. I get that it's a mistake, and I thank you for recognizing that it was a mistake. I needed to know how was that ticket generated to begin with? And where did this picture of the back of their vehicle come from? I have yet to hear an answer. Even though I followed up, no one will respond, because no one can, explain how did that happen, unless someone went in there and at least I'll say my opinion, someone had to have generated it itself. It was not generated from the system. Someone else can't do it. So that's, I'll say, like one example. Like I said, I have a lot, But one example where there's no way this could have happened without someone, a bad actor, interfering to make a situation occur, never occurred.
Would drive me bonkers. And you're like, that's just one example. I have lots. Like, I don't even like when I'm driving and I know I'm doing everything right and I see a cop behind me, and I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I literally start sweating and I'm just like, oh. And nothing. I have no warrants out for my arrest. I'm not a criminal. I do nothing. I'm like the most boring person, but still it is that kind of, and so to know that there is like the possibility, or the real possibility, that there are people tailing your parents or tailing you. No, if I was succumb to the terror, you win. I'm so serious. And so I'm looking at you and you are like, no, I just get upset.
You sound like that trauma therapist. He's like, yeah, you talk about this like you were saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get a cup of water. And I'm like, well, I don't know how else to respond. And I said, no, if you saw me when I opened up that ticket, oh no, it was upset. But
on behalf of your parents.
Yes. Well, I was upset that someone would do that to someone, period. And then like my parents, them being seniors, okay, what are y'all doing?
Yeah. And I see it, yeah, and it is you're very calm about everything. I'm getting upset. I'm trying to like, maintain some level of separation, but I'm like, okay, wow. Well, you said this book was cathartic for you. How so? What did it heal, or how did it heal?
See, what it kind of did for me was more so, it's kind of hard to articulate, but my biggest concern, like I said, with the ticket, and there were other examples where I felt like information was being fabricated, events were being fabricated. I had a very big concern that the next thing I looked was that evidence or documents or something would be fabricated trying to say that I was embezzling money, or that I had ties with socialism, or have photos just showing up on my computer so that they say I was involved in some type of human trafficking or something like that. So that was when those type of incidents started occurring, that became a really big concern for me. And someone mentioned, we'll write a book. And like I said, I'm not an author. I was like, oh my goodness, well, how would I do this? But putting everything down on paper and being able to say everything that happened, for me, it gave a feeling of protection. So now it's out there for the world to see how technology has or was misused against me. And so if something crazy pops up now, I can go back and say, no, this is kind of what happened before. And I have been very vocal in that things are being, or that technology or data is being misused, and that events are being fabricated to paint me in a bad light. So that was kind of what it helped me to, I don't say alleviate the fear, like this to me is still ongoing, but knowing that I have that out there saying that this is what's possible was good for me at the time. And I was like given current events, the stuff that I feel like I've been yelling about since 2022. Now other people are starting to like, wait a minute, especially like from a data perspective, who's got our data? But what does that mean? Well, I've been telling you about that for a couple of years now. You got to have more concern about any organization asking for all this data about us. What are they doing? How are they protecting it? And why do they need it? And so now I feel, I won't say vindicated, but it does like, okay, this is what I've been talking about for the last couple of years, that this is a concern.
I wish I would have heard you the last couple of years, because like I've had at least 5 notifications of data breaches from other entities. And I was like, oh, we had a data breach. And every other week, it's like somebody's breaking into the data. And I feel like at some point, it's like, are we in the matrix? Are we living in the matrix? And I've seen all of them 100 times and I'm still not prepared.
It's time for us to take a break and pay some bills. Be sure to stick around for the second half. Host Ella Shawn and Danielle Spencer, the Whistleblower, dig into the importance of protecting our digital footprints, because we are all vulnerable to digital assassination attempts.
Do you feel it? That tug? The one whispering, it's time to finally tell your story. At Southern Momentum Publishing House, we know that tug well. It's the start of something bigger. Your voice, your truth, your power on the page. Whether it's been years in the making or just an idea waiting to blossom, we are here to help you take the leap. No excuses, no waiting, just momentum. Visit us today at somopubhouse.org and start your next chapter now.
Welcome back to the second half of the Black Writer Therapy podcast with host Ella Shawn and her guest Danielle Spencer, who became a whistleblower because she chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. Let's get back to this session of Black Writer Therapy.
For this whole situation that we have been reduced from people to just binary ones and zeros. It feels like that to me,
Yes.
because like your title says, we can be digitally assassinated and never have a wound on our body.
Or even imitate it now, because now that once somebody knows who you are from a digital perspective, they can recreate you the way that they want. So I can pretend that I'm you because I have all your data. I can go get a ID, I can get accounts or whatever, because now that I have your data, I can say, no, this is who I am. Or someone else can say, no, I'm Danielle Spencer. Here's my social security number, my date of birth. This is where I've been the last 7 years. Here my checking account number. And people don't understand, especially like I said, what's been happening recently. When other entities have your data, how invasive it can be. And then if it's not secured properly, from now until the day that you die, unless you change something, you're at risk, because at any moment, someone can get your information and pretend that they're you, or use your information to harm you.
What have you done in this journey as a means of protection? Or like, is there a boom, I'm protected?
Let's say, in my opinion, no, there isn't. At least what I'm doing now, I said the education and awareness for lay people is an education awareness. What I have been trying to do is get out of ear with our lawmakers to get them to understand just how kind of like serious this could be. I'm also looking to try to make the books from just being books to movies, because there are a lot of people who do not read, but they would look at a movie and say, that's, make it relatable to them. And it's like, okay. And then I say, again, given current environment, it would really, I think, help people to understand the seriousness of kind of the moment that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, you would think already it's like, whew, I don't even want to talk about the whole politics situation, but that in and of itself is enough to make me want to like pull out my passport. But then you start thinking about the fact that you have that much incompetence at these very high levels. So who's protecting the people, right? At the mid-level, because who's saying, let's make sure all of our systems are as impenetrable as possible? Nobody. I'm thinking we're just out here on our own.
I would say my experience is no, there's no one. And it differs depending on the business that you're in. So if you're working for someone who's trying to make a profit, they're trying to secure their systems the cheapest way possible, or to make updates the cheapest way possible. So my experience has been they'll take shortcuts and typically won't have the cyber expert in the room or someone who specializes in risk management, because that person is always going to have an adversarial view telling them, well, if you do that, these are all the bad things that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
And we need to try to mitigate for each one. They don't want to hear that, because I want this done fast and I don't want to pay that much for it. And again, my experience in government spaces, not everyone who gets those decision-making jobs have that experience and that knowledge.
Yeah.
And especially depending on who's giving them that knowledge and experience are not going to be so open to hearing that their grand idea has all these holes in it. You didn't get certain people involved in your decision making. You don't even know who those bad actors are and what they've gotten access to. And we won't know until later on.
Until everyone's like, wait, I'm dead in the computer world. Like, what happens right to me? Because that could be a thing. I think I'm not going to sleep well tonight, Miss Danielle Spencer.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. But it's stuff to think about, right? And it's stuff that I honestly, I don't think about. Like, a lot of cybersecurity stuff like that. I mean, 'cause I'm a writer and I really am right here in my head most of the time, but just kind of listening to you and reading through some information, I'm like, the retaliation is ridiculous. And yet you're dealing with that while still like trying to help other people understand the ramifications of not protecting your data. Okay. Like one more question before we get to rapid fire questions. You've already stated that you did what you did because there was nothing else to do. That's just who you are. It was something wrong. I need to report this. And it was a CYA situation, right? Is this the legacy you're fighting to leave? What is the legacy that will be Danielle Spencer?
No, I never thought about it that far as like the legacy. I never thought about it that way. If I could think of a legacy, it would be to get more people to think about things differently. My belief is that you will always have bad actors in the world. That is never going to change. There's always going to be someone who's going to be trying to get over it. Always. Whether it's in technology, whether it's in politics, whether it's in banking, whatever. So to always have those people available on payroll whose job it is to think from an adversarial perspective. Like I said, if you look at things that happen currently, they're all, oh my God, I can't believe, because they're something that we have in our brain that once you've resolved something, that we're never going to have to see it again. And it's like just like being an African American, thinking that once we got civil rights, that was done. That was a done deal. We never have to revisit it. And now so many of us are surprised that we're basically having to revisit it again. So maybe we need to change the way we think that while we might have it, there's always going to be somebody trying to say, y'all should not have these rights. We don't think that you're full human or whatever. That probably a legacy that I want is that help more people to think about things as a continuum.
Wow. I think that legacy would serve you well, right? And serve humanity well. There is nothing permanent. Everything is ephemeral, and we need to own that well. Thank you for your TED Talk. I think that should be your next platform. Please go do a TED Talk, because seriously, I think we have become so settled and so comfortable in all of our Americanness and all of this comfort and all the things that, we have become complacent.
Yes.
You know? Yep. And so if the legacy of Danielle Spencer is always have fire under your feet and keep your eyes open, because things are always changing and nothing you have belongs to you for real. That's quite a legacy, I think. Quite a legacy. Okay, we're going to do some rapid fire. Hopefully this will be a little bit lighter. Well, I really am going to have to go take a nap after this. I didn't need a nap. Oh my gosh. But really, I think, and I do mean this in all honesty, this conversation is so necessary. And I think Black women need to, if anybody, we need to be more focused on this, because like we are the most educated folk in this country. There are a few of us, if this is not our area of expertise, right? We are not thinking about any of this. You know, we're just kind of like, here's my card. Let me sign up for this thing. Let me put my number in here. And we're just kind of going about our business, doing these things, unaware that we are leaving ourselves wide open, you know, for all sorts of horrible things that could be just as I think, damning and detrimental as physical attacks that we are so aware of, right? We know we don't go anywhere by yourself. Make sure you have your mace or whatever you're doing, right? But we're not considering the fact that people could attack us so horrifically via our digital footprint. So thank you. I think what you're doing is amazing, that you're taking something that is still plaguing your life and the life of people, the lives of people who are around you, but yet you are standing in this space, you're holding space, and saying, let me tell you something. Listen to me. Be aware. Like, I commend you for that. And I thank you for that because, something for me to think about and do something about, not just think about it. So we're going to do rapid questions. So boom, 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 boom. Don't even think about it. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so apropos. This first question. If Digital Assassins were made into a movie, who's playing you and who's playing the greatest adversary?
For me, Taraji, she's my favorite actress. Oh, I love her.
We love her.
Taraji, definitely. The adversary, because I do like him as a actor, I would say Matthew McConaughey.
Oh my word. I could see him playing a bad guy. I love that. Okay, you hold multiple degrees and certifications in cybersecurity and business. Was there ever a moment when your expertise became your greatest curse instead of your greatest asset?
I would say no. Because I did start off in the medical field, and that made me very detail-oriented. So in the beginning of my career, when I would go my career in IT, I would go to these meetings and like I said, because in medicine, you're very detail oriented. I would take these notes. I could tell you who was in the meeting, who said what time. And so at the time, I got a lot of teasing and people said, be careful what you say in that meeting because, she's going to write it down. And I had everything in a notebook. So early in my career, it was food for fodder early on. But later on, because I had those habits, it was a great asset. Because when people said, well, I never said that. Yeah, you did. On this date at this time, this person said this, that person said that. You were sitting there in the meeting. So it was an asset later, but in the beginning, it wasn't. It wasn't considered an asset.
Wow. Okay. You stood up to an entire system that tried to erase you. What's the first thing you did when you realized they had underestimated you? Because I feel like they underestimated you.
I'll say that it took me a while to understand that. Again, when you think like I do, very analytical, it never made sense. I'm like, this is not making sense. It's not computing in my brain. Why is this happening? So it wasn't, I said maybe even a year ago that I understood like what you were saying. And at the time, it still doesn't necessarily resonate, but I just didn't see it. I just never saw it. Because my mind just couldn't comprehend why would someone react this way when the law is clear or policy is clear.
Wow. I'm going to say really quickly that I think so many of us, I always say us Black women, don't see ourselves. We don't see ourselves for who we truly are. And if we're not around the right people who can act as mirrors for us and show us all the stuff that we are, we just never know. We never know how great we are. We never know how powerful we are. We never know how bad boss, all the things we are, right? And then if you don't have the right mirrors.
And I will say it's still something that I'm still trying to compute. More so not necessarily from seeing myself. It just seems so asinine to go this route for something so stupid. So that's where I'm kind of stuck. I'm really stuck there.
Okay. I see that. What's one truth you wish you had been wrong about? Anything, doesn't even matter what it relates to.
I wish I was wrong about that this was retaliation. I wish things did not have to go this far. And that's just, I won't say personal perspective. However, the non-emotional analytical part of me says someone had to go through it because, especially when you look at what's going on now, this is kind of the knowledge that someone that a lot of people need to have. So, and if I hadn't gone through it, I'm sure there are others who have gone through it too. If that never happened, there wouldn't be someone to sit there and explain, no, this is why this is bad. Why is it bad that you have people who aren't clear getting all this data? What can happen? So I say that's it's like a duality there between personal, I don't like going through this, and then the non-personal. Yeah, but we needed someone to be able to do that so they could speak truth to people.
So would you be Neo in the Matrix or the Oracle? Which one? Please tell me you're a Matrix fan. Please.
Yes, I know who I'm thinking about. Keanu Reeves or Lawrence Fishburne. Which one? I would probably say Lawrence Fishburne, the Oracle, more.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a fighter to go out there and do that. No, I'm going to step back and tell you this is kind of what's going on and help train you to do what you need to do. But
Yeah.
no, I don't want to go out there and do that.
Yeah. I kind of want to be out there doing it now. Could I? No, I'd be the first one to get, that'd be me. But yeah, I could say, yeah, Oracle. And that's such a cool thing, right? It's really a cool, wonderful thing. You are quite fascinating. And for someone who says I am an introvert and I don't like talking, you're very well, very well. Now I'm going to kind of pull you out of your comfort zone even more because there's a game. There's a game. I tell everybody, this is the nerd teacher in me. I taught for about 14 years. I love a good game. So I have my little cards here. They're a little blurry, but I'll tell you the whole premise. I have a set of 10 and I just need you to choose a number 1 through 10. Very good. My last guest chose 5. And this game is called The Audacity of Game Changers. And if any guest I've had on my show this season is a game changer, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with you. So I'm always here to celebrate Black women writers and what we bring to the world through our words, through our courage, through our actions. And I think, honestly, if there's who's my game changer of the season, it would probably go to you. If I come up with something like that, it would go to you because I think you've done something that's quite amazing. You put yourself, again, you positioned yourself in a place to leave an amazing legacy. And so I hope you carry that with you, that you have not been put in a place, but you have positioned your place as an old English teacher and an editor. That's an active voice that says it is a choice and you made that decision based on your own heart. And that is brave and beautiful. And I commend you for that. So thank you so much just for being who you are. So we have 5. I just need you to choose a letter from the word audacity.
D.
Okay, good. Now, the whole point of this game, oh, wow, I love this for you. The whole point of this game is to make up a story.
Make up a story.
Your face. Okay. Wow. Yes. And I believe you are able to do this. I believe you're able to do this. This is just talking. Just talking. So the word that you chose is compassion. Compassion. And your story needs to be about emotions and expressing emotions and compassion. I believe you already told me a beautiful story about compassion and emotion. It needs to be between 3 and 5 minutes long. Let me get my phone out. I believe in you. This is going to be good. I can't wait. I cannot wait to hear what you're going to tell me.
All right. A story about compassion. Well, there was this cybersecurity expert, and she worked in the Department of Motor Vehicles. And a new driver came in, and they were having problems paying for their driver's license fee. And they were trying to use the kiosk to do it and kept getting an error message and saying that the transaction couldn't process. And so they went to a person to help, and the person was trying to do the payment using the system, and they too were getting an error message. And so they went to this cybersecurity expert and asked her, these are the error messages that we're getting, and asked her to help. And her first thought, based on the error message that was getting there, was that the person did not have the funds available. While they was not saying that the funds were not available, she knew that error code and that typically what it meant. And so instead of embarrassing the young driver and letting them go, hey, you don't have the money to pay for this, what she did was pull the person aside and told them that they might want to try a different payment method, and that instead of them going back through another individual, that she would actually go to the kiosk with them and try to help them through the process. So when she did it that way, the person then went out, the young driver, to see if they could find another payment method that they could use. They weren't able to, but they called a family member and said they could do it for them. So they had the family member come up, and that family member was able to do it and help the individual out. And so that expert, she was able to show compassion and not embarrass that person and have their business all out in the street about them not having the funds to pay for the driver's license, but allow them to be able to get get the transaction done and keep their dignity.
Ma'am, and you said you don't have any creativity. Is that what you said?
I said that's not my thing. I had to really think about that, and I'm like, oh, what can I think? And
That was really good.
I will
Really
say
good.
that was based on the only thing I could think of when you said passion. When I was in college, I worked at a bank, and so I did see those type of situations where people didn't have funds to do certain things or something that happened. While you could embarrass them, even when they were acting out, there was always something that I would say definitely within me that my first reaction was I wanted to let them have it. Especially it's only like people who were acting out, but would stop and say, this isn't a situation that necessarily want everyone to know about. And so that it was based off of that, like having those type of experiences working at the bank. It didn't just come off like the top of my mind. It just that.
You did a good job. I enjoyed that. If you could just tell the listeners how to get in touch with you, what's next for you, where they can follow you.
So I will say my social media platform of choice is LinkedIn, but I have a website. It's daniellespencer.org. On that website, the other social media platforms that I somewhat use, such as Facebook and Instagram. I think there's something else I don't remember, a Blue Sky. But from my website, you can click to follow me on social media. And I also have an email address, so feel free, people can send me an email. But that's kind of how one would find me.
Okay. Very good. And are there any more books in your future? Are you working on a screenplay for this book to turn into a movie? Taraji, are you hearing this? Yeah.
I have the third book that I'm supposed to be finishing. I will say I've always had an appreciation for people in any other type of field, but writing is not easy. It is not easy. And I'm trying to finish the last book in the Digital Assassin series. And I think I've gotten maybe 2 chapters done. I knew it was hard, just for me to get to where I am, but it is like really hard trying to get this last one done. So I'm hopeful within the next somewhere between 3 to 6 months that it'll be done, edited, and I can put it out. But that's kind of where part of what I'm working on. The other part, like you said, trying to get myself motivated on how to change it into a script so that I can try to get that out there to market it, to make it something that's visual and not something that people can read.
Yeah. Are you fictionalizing the script so that it's like a kind of, I don't know, like movie or more of a documentary?
My preference would be like documentary, but I don't know. Because I think movie people might more enjoy it, but I kind of don't want it to be strictly entertainment. That's I want it to be more of a documentary type of thing. But the first thing that comes to mind is something like Malcolm X, where it was entertaining. People really got to learn, and not just being entertained.
Okay. Well, thanks. I like that. Well, I'm so very happy that we had this chance to connect and talk. I will continue to follow you. And if ever you want to pop back on my proverbial couch, I am simply an email away. I truly enjoyed this conversation, and I do want to keep up with you and just to see how everything is going. So when the third book comes out, please let me know so that we can get back together and talk about that as well. I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and let you go because we did it for about an hour. Okay. So anything else you want to let the listening audience know?
No.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I guess we'll see each other on LinkedIn.
Yes. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Black Writer Therapy, where we amplify and celebrate the voices of unapologetic Black women writers. We're proud to be part of the Alive Podcast Network. Be sure to tap into the only Black woman-owned podcast network with its very own proprietary platform and app. When you download the Tap In app, you gain access to nearly 100 Black creative voices. To support Black Writer Therapy, subscribe and choose me as your favorite podcast host. 50% of your subscription fee goes directly to this show and allows me to continue to bring you quality content like this. Until next time, remember, be kindest to yourself first, always, and in all ways. I am Ella Shawn, your host for Black Writer Therapy Podcast.